Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedbuilding video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video, I'm going to be building in the world of Windenburg, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack of Sims 4 Get Together, and I'm going to be building a Windenburg Castle using the latest kit which came out yesterday, which was the Sims 4 Castle Estate kit. So if you wasn't aware, yesterday was new kit day for the Sims 4, which I feel like it's been forever since I said that. I feel like we got to a point in time when we was getting kits literally thrown at us, and maybe it's just me, but it feels like it's been a really long time since we've had any new kit releases. But that changed yesterday because we got 2 new kits for the Sims 4. Now we got a Creator Sim kit, which I think is called Gothic Rival. Don't quote me on that because I'm not actually sure, but it's something along the lines of that. It's a Gothic Creator Sim kit. And then we also got a Castle Estate build and buy kit, but mainly focusing on the building aspects of the game. And so naturally, of course, I wanted to do a build sitting down and basically just playing around with this new kit and just seeing what I could come up with. And so yeah, that is exactly what I did, and so I hope you guys like it. But getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself. So as you can see, I've already quite quickly built the main shell of this castle. Now I do want to mention, before I came in and I had the castle kit in my game, I basically just whipped up a shell of a castle. I just made like castle shapes. So basically I just built different rectangles, did different bump outs, and just basically made different towers. And then now you can see me, I'm going around and I'm just placing down all this different wallpaper. Honestly, the difference between the first clip that you just saw me do and this second clip, I'm not joking, there must have been about 4 hours difference, because when I first came into this build, I didn't actually have the castle kit in my game, and I just basically built this shell. And then once I got my hands on the pack, I then just came in and just basically tried to play about with all the windows, the wallpaperings, all the different features that we got from this new DLC, and just basically tried to make it fit. And I mean, to be fair, it actually worked out alright, because I didn't end up having to change really the shape of it that much when it came around to actually placing down, you know, like the new windows, the new door frames, and all the new stuff that we got. Because coming into it, I didn't know how big they were going to be, so I assumed that they were going to be like 3 to 4 tiles wide. Can't lie, we got some display pictures of this new kit, like as kind of like a promo thing. I basically tried to eyeball measure up the size of Bella and Mortimer Goth in comparison to the new archways, and just basically did a bit of guesswork. But yeah, I mean, it worked out alright. In terms of the kit items, I used the majority of the stuff that we got from this DLC within this build. I didn't use one new column, and I also didn't use one of the new fences, but only because, and you will see me pull the fence out, I'm not a massive fan of one of the new fences that we've got from this new kit. Like I said, you will see me pull it out, and when I do pull it out of the build and buy category, I'll just pinpoint it to you so you can kind of have a reference point. But the only way that I can describe this new fence is, you know, at the front of the build, at the front of this castle, I have a series of different half walls, and they kind of go in like an uppy downy kind of motion, if you're following my drift. Well, basically, we've got a new fence that is meant to look like that, it's meant to be that, but it was just a bit too chunky for my liking. Like, it looked weird, it looked too oddly shaped for this castle anyway. I mean, you might be able to make it work in different castles. I mean, I say you might, you probably will be able to make it work, but I just didn't like the look of it, and so I decided not to use one of the new fences and just, yeah, use a half wall instead. But as you can see, I just pulled out some of the new windows that we got from this kit, which to me, to be honest, they're probably the best part of this new DLC. Don't get me wrong, I love the new wallpaper. It comes in so many lovely swatches as well, by the way. I don't know if you would have seen, but basically when I came in and I was just trying to figure out what wallpaper I was going to use, I tried to filter through all the different, to me, usable swatches, because we have some swatches that I know, to be honest, that I'm probably never going to use. We have like a really like orangey kind of brown, which isn't my cup of tea whatsoever, but we've got some really lovely grey neutral swatches. We've got a white, we've got a black, we've got a cream, we've got some nice wallpaper swatches. We've also got a really nice flooring tile, we've got a nice set of stairs, we've got a new foundation, new doors and stuff. But to me, I just love the windows, and I think it's because we haven't really got anything like this currently in the game. The only thing that I can think of is we have some similar-ish kind of windows from the Get Together expansion pack, but they're nothing like this. They're nowhere near as extravagant. And so for me, the windows just kind of like made the build. Also, something about not only the windows, but then also the flooring and the wallpapering. And I'm pretty sure all of the different archways and doors as well, they come in like dirty, kind of like manky swatches, which I love. Also, by the way, side point, that's that new fence. Not a fan. It just looked weird. It made it look top heavy. Like the top of the castle just looked really top heavy when I tried to use a new fence. And so, yeah, you saw that I had tried to place it down, didn't like it, deleted it, and just forgot about it. But yeah, I really like the fact that we've got these new, almost like grungier looking swatches on all the new items, because I just love building with realism. And to me, if you're going to build a castle, it probably weren't built last year. It's a good few years old, and so it's gonna have all these different marks, all these different like scuffs and imperfection, and I just absolutely love it. And I'm pretty sure the majority of the new items, if not all the new items that we've got from this DLC, have like a dirty version of them. And so you'll see when I place down some of the windows, some of them I'll do in like the normal kind of colour swatch, but then some of them I'll change to make it look like, if they're near the chimney, they're a little bit darker, because like the smoke from the chimney and stuff, I just really like it. But either way, moving on and actually getting on and talking about what is on the inside of this castle, because I'm not gonna lie, I was so excited to come in and start filming this castle, because basically the past week I've been thinking about what kind of storyline I could build for a castle, because let's be realistic, how many of your Sims actually live in a castle? None of mine. I didn't actually think I'd ever build a castle, but I mean, we're here. But I don't have any Sims that live in a castle, and I don't imagine that I'm going to have that many that will in the future. But I was thinking, well, what kind of Sims might previously used to live in a castle? And then the idea came to me of, why don't I build Princess Cordelia's old castle on the island of Windenburg? Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with who Princess Cordelia is. I feel like maybe a lot of people might be familiar, but then on the same token, not a lot of people read into Sims 4 lore, whereas me, I love the lore in the Sims 4 lore. I just love it. I live and breathe this kind of stuff. But basically, long story short, we're meant to have some sort of like supposed ancient princess or like historical figure in The Sims 4 who is called Princess Cordelia. And basically her story is, she used to live in, I believe now since we've had my wedding stories, she used to live in Tartosa. And you're going to think I'm putting your leg here, but she apparently had to flee her island, flee her palace, leave her like royalty stuff behind, go on a pirate ship, because her palace got invaded by sloths. Honestly, hand on heart, I'm not joking. Look it up. Look up Princess Cordelia lore. There's apparently this meant to be princess who one day had to flee her royal palace in the world of Tartosa because sloths, sloths, the really slow, I thought quite peaceful creatures, invaded her palace. And so she got on a pirate ship and she left her old life behind, and she basically had a series of different pirate boyfriends. As pretty much her story cut short. But I thought this would be such a nice idea to build a palace that maybe after she escaped the world of Tartosa, she escaped the somewhat dangerous sloths, she on her pirate ship was sailing across in the world of Windenburg. She came across this island and found somewhat of like an ancient historical building and decided to move in here. And so on the inside, I tried to make it seem like this used to be her house, like she used to have all of her stuff here, but then ever since then she's long gone, like bless her, she passed away. But now teenagers have kind of like overtaken this castle, and I basically made it into somewhat of like a teenager's hangout. Now I feel like I need to give you a little bit of context where I'm building it and why I think this is quite a nice addition to the game. I mean, I think it's a nice addition. You might not want to download it, but I know for me personally, I'm probably going to play in this castle quite a lot when my teenagers get invited to hang out at the Island Bluffs, because, you know, when you enter a brand new save file, you travel to the world of Windenburg, we have this little separate island, and basically, at random times in the day, your Sims mates might call your Sims and be like, you're right, there's a party happening right now in the Bluffs, do you want to come? It might be at like midnight, it might be at like 3 in the afternoon, it kind of differs, but basically, your Sims will travel to this island, and originally, on this lot, it's literally just a swimming pool and it's got a bit of manky water. Like, there is nothing here. And so normally whenever I get my Sims to travel to this lot, if they've been invited to a party, I literally just dance by the DJ booth, have a drink, and then I'll get him to go home because there's nothing really to do here. And so I thought building Princess Cordelia's old castle and then making it on the inside so it looks like teenagers are kind of like overtaking this castle. They've got all their stuff everywhere. In some of the rooms we've got some kind of like homeless Sims sleeping in tents upstairs and stuff. I just thought this was such a cool idea, and also just a really good way to make use of this lot. Like I said, when you go into a brand new save file, originally it's literally just a swimming pool and it's got some water. It did have a diving board, in all fairness to it, but there wasn't much gameplay, and I just found myself bored whenever I got my Sims to visit here. And so I feel like having a castle in replacement for that swimming pool, manky swimming pool, it's just a really nice addition to the game, and I was just so happy with it. But then with the idea of Princess Cordelia used to live here, and you've got all the different things in the game that relate to her in like the description and stuff, because if you're unfamiliar with Princess Cordelia, basically if you go into your game, you know you've got a little search bar. So if you look at my screen right now, on the bottom left hand corner, you know where it says search? Basically if you search in there Princess Cordelia, you'll have a few different items come up which she would have either painted. We've got beds in the game that are named after her. We've got her supposed like bathtub and stuff. But then if you actually look at the descriptions of different items in the game, so like different paintings and different like sculptures and figurines and stuff, some of them reference Princess Cordelia. And also, you know, the My Winter Stories game pack, we've got these little like bottles your Sims can find on the beach. They also reference Princess Cordelia in it. It's just, there is so much lore around this Sim, and I can't believe it's actually taken me this long to build something for her. But I just love this idea of having all of these different things that kind of revolve around this princess inside of this castle, but then also make it so it's usable. So we've got a room that I turned into kind of like a little like DJ room. We've got a DJ station in there. We've got like cardboard placements onto the floor for like a dance mat. We've got a series of different bedrooms upstairs that are decorated quite differently. We've got what I imagine to be the princess's bedroom, like her old actual bedroom. So I placed down like her old bed in there, and I placed down loads of just different random stuff basically onto the floor to make it look like people have since gone into her bedroom in her old castle, and they've tried to look for like valuable things and stuff. You know, like teenagers have maybe like spray graffiti on the walls, and there's just loads of like little bits and bobs basically. But then in one of the bedrooms upstairs, I decided to make it into, well, what about all of them homeless Sims, like all of them random towners that haven't got a house? Where would they live? Maybe they live here. Maybe they're a frequent party goer to the buffs and they just decided to never leave. And so if you wanted to, you could technically get your Sims to live in this castle, because there is also a kitchen. I made it so there is a kitchen, there is a fridge. I did also put a cauldron in the kitchen, but only because it looked somewhat like historical to me. But then also in like the dining room, I made it seem like a dining room that has since been, you know, taken apart a little bit. I've placed down the chairs onto the actual dining room table. You know, when you was in school, actually I don't know if you did this when you was in school, but when I was in school when I was younger, when we used to finish class for the day, we got made to put our chairs on top of the tables and kind of basically just make it easy for the cleaners. I don't know if anyone else did that, but I did that in this castle because to me I feel like you would find that in somewhat of a derelict castle or some sort of like derelict estate or something. It was so much fun to decorate this build. But either way, besides the point, moving on, as you can see, I just pretty much did the whole entire exterior of the build. I tried to use quite a lot of different like live edit and debug menu items with not only landscaping, but I've tried to place down old like castle ruins. We've got some really cool like castle pieces from the Get Together live edit menu, and so I placed them onto one side of the building. I also placed some sort of like little archway that we got from, I believe it was the Cottage Living expansion pack, on the other side. I then placed down some sort of like barbed wire fence, which I imagine there used to be barbed wire or some sort of like fence basically wrapping around this whole entire property. But you know, since then that has been basically pushed over. I tried to make it seem like that as well. I tried to use barbed wire fence pieces that look like they've purposely been pushed down, but I then also placed down just like old fence pieces. I placed down loads of different ivy. I placed down like some sort of like old kind of like maybe dead rose bushes and stuff. It was so much fun to landscape this build, but then also just decorate it. I was having the absolute time of my life. But either way, besides the point, as you can see, I have now moved on into the inside of this build. I started off by like the front entrance hallway into the castle. Now, you might have noticed I placed down a knight statue by the front door, and basically, initially when I came into this build, I had the idea of what about by the original front door of the castle, there used to be 2 knights either side of like the entrance hallway or like the entrance front door, and then since then, teenagers, when they've got the DJ booth on, you know, they've had a few drinks and stuff, they've decided to pick up the other statue and put it into the DJing room. And so you'll see that knight statue, basically what I imagined to used to be in the hallway, end up in basically the room across the hall. But then when I was furnishing this build, I was struggling a little bit with decorations, and so there does end up being a couple more knight statues, but more so on the upstairs. But it was just an idea that I had, which I thought was really nice. And then also on the inside of this build, you might notice as I'm coming in and I'm actually placing down all these different objects, I have a ceiling light, but then I end up deleting it. Basically, I didn't want to make it feel like this castle had electricity, even though, thinking about it now actually, there's a DJ booth and I placed down a wire that looks like it's going from the DJ booth into the wall. I didn't really think that one through, but basically I didn't want it to make it look like there was like overhead ceiling lights. So I don't think they have an energy supplier in this castle. Maybe they're running off a generator or something, we can pretend that way. But basically when I was building, I initially came in with a ceiling light, but then once I pretty much finished off the room, I then deleted the ceiling light and then went around and placed down some sort of like candle lanterns onto the wall. Ones that I end up using are from the Get Together expansion pack, and something that I wanted to note, the majority of the stuff that I use in this build, I feel like is from either the Get Together expansion pack, the Vampires game pack, the Basement Treasures kit, weirdly enough, or obviously the new Castle Estate kit. I use a lot of Get Together in particular because that kind of style of like more Tudor looking furniture kind of just fitted this castle vibe. And so if you're curious on like the main packs I used, yeah, I would definitely say it would be them ones. I obviously did use other packs like here and there for like 1 or 2 things, but I feel like for the most part, if you've got them couple of packs, you should be good to download this build, and there shouldn't be too much missing if you don't own some of the other DLCs. But either way, as you would have just seen, I just did the dining room of this build, which you would have seen what I meant by like I put down the chairs on top of the table, but then some of the other ones I made them go a little bit like skew with, and then I also rotated one to make it look like it's been knocked over and it's just like sitting on the floor for something. When I was furnishing like the normal kind of castly is not a word, but you're following along with me hopefully, but when I was furnishing the rooms that you would have in a castle anyway, so like the kitchen, the dining room, what I imagined to be like old sitting room or like old office and stuff, can't lie, I did really struggle when it came around to it because I've never been in a castle, and you know what, I'm actually kicking myself because last month I was in Edinburgh and I didn't even enter Edinburgh Castle, which Edinburgh is meant to have this like historical kind of castle, but it was 40 quid. Actually, no, it wasn't 40 quid. It was 20 quid per person for tickets, but there was 2 of us, and I didn't want to pay 40 quid to enter the castle because there was some sort of like wacky emporium, you know, like them fun places that you can go that have like all these different like illusions. There was one of them next to the castle, so I decided to pay 40 quid and go in that instead. But now I'm kicking myself because I just wish I wasn't in the castle so I could have seen what the castle was like. But I just tried to decorate it to be as castle-like as I could possible. But one thing that I wanted to mention is the painting that I placed down above the fireplace in the kitchen. So that painting supposedly is meant to be where Princess Cordelia used to live. It's a base game painting, and there's something referencing Princess Cordelia within the description of it, I believe. I think off memory, she was meant to paint the painting herself because once the somewhat dangerous sloths, and I actually can't believe that's part of the law, like literal sloths, which generally I thought sloths were meant to be alright, or is it just the Sims are making them out to be like these really bad creatures when in reality they're just really slow and quite peaceful? I mean, I always just thought they were really nice, but besides the point, when the sloths invaded her old house, she basically missed it, and so she decided to paint it. And so yeah, I just popped it on top of the fireplace in the kitchen, and then using the tool mod, I like rotated it so it looks like, you know, over time it's not hanging on the nail as much so it's kind of like dangling and it's just about to fall off. I do quite a lot of that within this build. If ever I place down a painting, I try and rotate it to make it seem somewhat realistic. You know, there's not a maid, there's not a butler that's going around this castle and making sure that it's all, you know, like pristine and prim and proper and perfect, because I imagine her butler, which by the way, actually, I placed down her butler's sculpture in this build a few times as well, because she has a butler sculpture in the game called Bob the Butler. Again, you can just search it in the search bar in the game. It's really fun. I love this kind of lore in The Sims. Like, it really just, it makes you feel giddy and just, I love this kind of stuff. But I placed down her butler sculpture a few times in this build, but you will see that. But yeah, I didn't imagine that someone keeps this palace, this castle clean. And so you'll notice there is a lot of different cobwebs, a lot of different cracks, and just loads of different imperfections. But to me, I feel like that is just what makes a castle a castle. But either way, moving on, as you can see, I finished up the kitchen, and now I've moved over into what I imagine used to be some sort of like ballroom or some sort of like music and dancing room. So, you know, a lot of the paintings in the Sims 4 base game reference mainly like music or like bass players or like violin players and like jazzy kind of music. There's some sort of lore tied to Princess Cordelia of that, because there's something along the lines of when she had to flee her palace, she loved music and like she had this band and stuff. Like, she was royal, she had it all. But when she moved off the palace and like she moved onto the pirate ship with all her different pirate boyfriends, she missed music, and so she used to paint a lot of different paintings of like violins and piano keys and stuff like that. And so I thought this would be nice if this could have been her like music room when she used to live in this castle. But currently, as you can see, it's no longer a ballroom. It's basically a massive teenager hangout. Now, when I was decorating this build, I was trying to think about, well, for starters, the lore around Princess Cordelia and all the different objects and items that we have in the game. Also, side subject, the bust that I placed down onto the fireplace, that's her. Like, that's literally Princess Cordelia's buff, like, in the game. Like, she's got her head sculptured in the game. There is just so much lore around her. But when I was doing this build, I was trying to place down all these different objects, all these different things that relate to her in the description or in the title and stuff. But then I was also thinking about the gameplay mechanics of it, because like I said, when you originally visit this island in a brand new save file, there is nothing here apart from a manky old swimming pool. I wanted to have this castle filled with loads of different gameplay activities, because my Sims get bored when they get invited to go to the bluffs. And so on the inside of this castle, in at that first room which you just saw me do with like the DJing booth and stuff, I just basically tried to place down gameplay items that I think I might want to play with, and then also you might want to play with if you do want to download this castle. But then also, not in just that room, but in other rooms in the house, I tried to place down random stuff. So, you know, like the foosball table that we've got from Get Together, I placed that down because I thought that might be like a nice addition to this build. And then there is the bubble blowers, there is multiple different music stations. I placed down a bar, but it's like a pop-up bar, so it's like someone's just like unpacked and like unfolded a table and placed down a bar, which, I mean, looking back, I probably could have placed down one of the actual bars that we have in the game, like a really old wooden kind of like historic looking one. But when I was just doing like the teenagers hangout room, I don't know, I just liked the idea of the little pop-up bar. But yeah, I just tried to place down a lot of different objects that also just have gameplay. I didn't want it just to be a show of a castle that just had loads of different decorations but no actual, you know, like physical things for your Sims to do. And so hopefully I did enough of that. But as you can see, in both the first room with the DJ booth and then also the second room with the bubble blower, I placed down some get together flags that reference one of the clubs that we have in the game. Now, the club that it's meant to reference is the Renegades Club. I always get really worried whenever I say the name of that club, because do you remember there was that meme of like the Renegade meme? I just feel like I always say it wrong, but it's how you say it, isn't it? Renegades. Either way, it's this club in The Sims 4 Get Together expansion pack that is basically just a bunch of naughty kids. I say kids, it's actually a teen, a kid, and then I think a young adult, but I always think of it as like a teenagers club, because whenever I play the game myself, and if ever I have like a naughty teenager, I always get them to join that club, because they basically just run around and pull pranks on people, be mischievous, you know, sabotage things, and just, they're not very nice Sims technically. And so I thought it'd be really fun if, what about for my save file, because I am thinking I'm going to include this castle in my save, I make it so this is a new club hangout. Because with the club system from The Sims 4 Get Together, you can like basically set different locations where you want your clubs to always meet. I feel like this would be the perfect place for this crew of people that are meant to be just really naughty people. You know, they go around, they spray graffiti, they are mean to everyone, they're probably not the nicest of Sims, and so to be kind of like tucked away in this secluded castle on the island, I just thought it was a really nice idea for gameplay. And so yeah, I referenced that club quite a bit within the decorations in this build. And also just the club icon itself, which the club icon is literally just like a skull and bones. It's quite historical castle. Maybe it's just because it's a symbol of, you know, passing away, but it kind of fits in with a castle. And so I just thought it was a nice addition to this build. But either way, moving on, as you can see, I have now moved on to the upstairs, and I'm currently coming in and decorating Princess Cordelia's old bedroom. So in here, I had to use her bed in the game, because you see the bed that I placed down into this bedroom, that is called Princess Cordelia's bed. Like that used to be her bed. There's a single bed version of it as well, but I didn't want to give her the single bed version because she's a princess, and so I gave her the double bed version. But then in her bedroom, I placed down a fireplace, I placed down an art easel because, like I said, she misses her home and she often paints things referencing all the things that she missed from when she used to live in the world of Tartosa, and so I placed down one of them in there. I placed down an older looking wardrobe, and I placed down her rug as well on the floor because, again, it's just one of the objects that references her in the game. But I placed it down in like a whitey grey swatch. But I was thinking, that's old, like that's well old. It's not going to be white and grey anymore. And so I placed down a ton of different, almost like rugs on top of the rug itself, but they look like scuffs and marks and basically bits of gunk. I'm thinking over time, teenagers go upstairs, they rummage through her stuff, they rummage through all of her old things, and they've got muddy footprints. And so they've basically made this white and grey rug pretty much just grey from all the dust and stuff from on the island. But you can see that I'm currently coming in and decorating her bathroom. Again, in her bathroom, I use Princess Cordelia's bathtub. I say again, this is the only bathroom that you've seen me furnish, and it will be the only bathroom that you actually see being furnished, because there is, I think off memory, 3 bathrooms in this castle, which, is that a lot for a castle? I don't know, I've never been in one, so I don't know what the plumbing system was like back in the day, so I can't be one to comment. But there is 3 bathrooms within this castle, but I only show the furnishing for one because they're quite repetitive, because I made them somewhat similar. I mean, I tried to place down different cracks and different, like, sort of like mumbo jumbo in different corners, but for the most part they all are quite similar. But I am saying, again, Princess Cordelia's bathtub because I'm just trying to pinpoint and just basically show you all the different things that we really do have relating to this sim in the game. And the thing is as well, which I want to mention, you can actually download her from the gallery from Maxis's account. So a couple of years ago, I think it must have been like 3-4 years ago, something like that, the Sims team made Princess Cordelia, also made 3 of her ex-boyfriends, Bob the butler, and then also her chef as well. And it is a household that you can download via the gallery. Like, you can download her and have her in your game. Now, if I was to download her, I'd probably make her into a ghost, because in my head, she's old, it makes sense, and I would love if I could download her, make her into a ghost, and make her haunt this castle. I would love that to pieces. Unfortunately, I can't do that. Like, that's not a feature in the game. I can list this, I believe, as a haunted lot type, but I think it's just going to be random ghosts. But I would love it if I could actually have the Princess Cordelia and the series of different boyfriends that she had over time haunting this castle, because I think as well, for like gameplay ideas and like for teenagers that have snuck into this castle and like maybe they've heard about it from their friends and they want to go check it out the weekend, they've come to the castle and there is the butler just floating about because he's a ghost, and you know, the chef and some of the boyfriends and stuff. I just thought that would be such a cool idea, but unfortunately you can't do that. And also, you can't actually live on this lot either, which I feel like I should probably mention. If you are familiar with the Get Together expansion pack and you're familiar with the lot that I'm building on, you might be aware of this already, but the particular lot that I'm building on in this world, it's a sort of like special lot type, so you can't change it from the bluffs or like the island bluffs to be like a residential or a restaurant or a library or anything. It has to stay locked as the bluffs lot type, if that makes any sense. But I mean, you can still get your Sims to visit here and then just never leave if you want to do that. I mean, I've definitely done that a few times. If ever I have my Sim, maybe it's more so in circumstances when like my Sim owns a restaurant or they own a retail store or something and I can't be bothered to go through loading screens. Oftentimes I'll just put a bed down, put a toilet down, and then just get them to never leave, because there is technically nothing tying them to going home. And so, yes, you can just get your Sims to visit here and then just basically live here if you want to do that. I mean, it's fully functional. It's got a kitchen. It's got somewhat of a dining room. it's got kind of a lounge space. There is definitely a bed for your sim to sleep on. You know, you've got the facilities for your sims to live here, but I mean, it's completely up to you what you decide to do with this build if you do decide to download it. But either way, moving on, as you can see, I have now moved over into a room which I imagine used to be some sort of like worker's room for the princess. Now, I'm thinking she had a butler, she also had a chef. I was thinking maybe in this castle she hired some sort of help. Maybe she had people, I don't know, going out onto the island and maybe rummaging for all these different harvestables and maybe going fishing and, you know, just people that worked for her. I wanted to have some sort of like living quarters for them, and so that is basically what this room is. I tried to make it look like someone has been in this room and just chucked everything all over the place, and you know, the bed's turned on its side and the bookcase has been like pushed over. The bookcase as well that I use in that bedroom is called Princess Cordelia's bookcase. I'm really sorry if I'm getting really boring repeating everything that's related to her, but I just wanted to tell you how much stuff there is related to this sim in the game, because it just makes me so happy, and it just makes me feel like giddy that I've now actually got a build referencing all this lore that we already have in the game. But yeah, I placed down a bookcase on its side, and then I placed down loads of different like rubbish onto the floor, and I placed down a chest that looks like the bookcase has fallen onto the chest, and just random bits and bobs basically in that room. But as you can see, I've now come over and I've basically just come in and started decorating the hallways. I would say out of every single room that I decorated in this whole entire castle, the hallways are by far the most difficult to decorate, because what do you put in a somewhat derelict castle? Like, what kind of decorate? I don't imagine there is that many. But I didn't want to leave it there. Like, I wanted it to seem like people have actively been in here and they've been going through her old stuff, and maybe people are living here, like townies maybe potentially living here, and I wanted it to seem like people are still actively visiting this lot. But then I didn't want there to be like up to date prim and proper furnishings and decorations and stuff, and I've really struggled not putting loads of plants in corners, because oftentimes in hallways just chuck a plant in the corner and you're done, and it makes for a perfect like little corner piece. But in this build I tried to hold that to a minimum. I mean, you'll see there is definitely plants in corners, and there is literally a plant in this hallways corner. The one that I've used is from, I believe, Journey to Batuu, but I felt like it kind of fitted in with a castle. I just didn't want to have like prim and proper like plants with lovely different like pots that they're sitting in, or like loads of different pretty flowers and stuff, because I imagine that the flowers that I did place down into this build are probably dead, or they're probably plastic or something, because I'm not imagining that the teenagers are going around and, you know, they've got watering can and stuff and they're watering the flowers and whatnot. But either way, besides the point, in the hallways I placed down a telescope in front of one of the windows. Now, I'm really sorry if it bugs you, but the telescopes that I placed down, I didn't place them down to be like actively functioning items, because if you're not aware, you can't actually have your sim look through a telescope inside, which I really wish that we could, because I'm thinking, I don't know if you've seen it, you know the John Lewis advert from like 2016 or something. It's a little girl and she's got a telescope and she looks out of her window and she can see a man on the moon. This is completely besides the point, but it's the best John Lewis Christmas advert ever. But besides the point, I would love if we could have telescopes like looking out of windows in like kids' bedrooms and stuff, because to me that is so much more realistic than having a telescope outside. Like at the minute it's like -5 degrees where I am. If I had a telescope I wouldn't use it, and so for me, if I did have one, I'd just put it in my bedroom and then just angle it out the window. I really wish that we could actually have telescopes that work on the inside, but basically I placed them down because I'm thinking Princess Cordelia, probably just before she passed away, maybe had another pirate boyfriend, because she loved to pirate, she did. But she maybe had a pirate boyfriend that was out at sea, and so every single day she used to go through her castle and look through all the different telescopes, and they're kind of like a viewing onto the sea that is by the island, so she can kind of like see who's coming near the castle, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I did just want to mention that the telescopes that I placed down onto the inside of the build, they're just purely for decorational purposes. Your Sims can't actually use them. But either way, besides the point, as you can see, I've now moved on into kind of like the tower portion of the castle. I was really stuck what to decorate this room to be, because I didn't want it to be like another sleeping living quarters like teenagers or like homeless Sims or something. And so the first level, it's actually technically the third floor in the game, but on the third floor of the tower I decided to make it into Princess Cordelia's somewhat of a home office-ish kind of situation. I placed down a bunch of different like mail and messages in the bottles, which I imagine, you know, her pirate boyfriend sent to her over time, and they're the ones that reference her in the game as well, so I placed them down. And then when we move on to the upstairs, which I'm currently now coming in and furnishing, I decided to make it into part art studio, because she loved painting, and then also part teenager hangout. It's where I put the foosball table, and I also placed down another blah blah blah, because I just thought it would be nice for like some more gameplay activities. But other than that, I'm basically just going to go around this room, finish it off, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedboarding video. Bye guys.